We're here at Parkin by Radisson, and we're about to dive into a topic that's sort of related to what's happening in a few days. That's Mother's Day. We're talking about children, how to be present, how to be connected with your children. Because in this day and age, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things going on, social media, friendships, cliques. And if we're not careful, we can get sort of lost in it all, and we can lose that connection with our young ones. I've got Cece. I've got to get this right. Cece Ojani Bekor, such an incredible name. Who's an accredited leadership and wellness coach. And we're going to dive into this conversation with Cece.
Thank you.
Ojani.
Yes.
Where's that name from?
It's from the western part of the country. It's a Kenyan name.
Yeah.
I always get asked if I'm Kenyan.
Yeah.
And yes, I am Kenyan. I was
Cece
born
Ojani.
and raised here.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
You have a daughter.
Yes,
you have a child.
I do.
Can you tell me about her?
Yes, so her name is Ajani, which
Yeah.
is the feminine version of Ojani.
Yeah.
So my husband and I named her after my dad.
Yeah.
And they say be careful what you name your kids because she's exactly like my dad.
Really?
She's very direct. She knows what she wants. She's very feisty. And she's only 2 years old. Well, she's going to be 2 on May 31st.
Okay.
She's just started kindergarten, 3 half days a week.
Oh, really?
It's been, I wasn't even sure I wanted to have children. Many years ago, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I became sure a few years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I did it. But I
Yeah.
say that to everyone. Just, it's okay if you're not sure.
Yeah.
Just do it when you're sure.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's been my story as a mom. I didn't grow up thinking
That you wanted to be a mom.
yeah. I was
So
focused on work.
on the
Yeah.
career woman, I see. So what's it been like those 2 years? And do you feel like you have been present? Have there been any distractions? So what's it been like those 2 years?
Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big advocate of getting the help that you need. In any situation, if you are not sure of what you're doing, don't stay stuck. It was coaching that helped me in my life, and that's why I've become a coach. So I've gotten very used to asking for help. Even when I was starting a business, I got a business coach to help me. So when I became pregnant, I started asking around for all the different professionals who are out there who can help. And I met so many amazing women here in Nairobi whose job it is to help new mothers. So I did hypnobirthing classes, which are about improving your mindset, helping women to understand that the movies have told a lot of exaggerations about childbirth. So I attended hypnobirthing classes with a lovely lady called Yvonne who works here in Nairobi. I had a doula, a lovely lady called Shiko Mweke was my doula. So my husband and I just felt very prepared during the pregnancy and in the birthing room when I went to Aga Khan Hospital. So I actually did feel empowered. The first trimester, I was so exhausted, but again, I asked for help. My husband would help me out with things like, errands and what have you. He does anyway, but he did it even more. I was gentle with myself. I wasn't chasing after clients as much as I would have in the past. So I'm also just a big fan of doing what you need to do to be well. So my daughter was born on May 31st, 2 years ago. And it's been a wonderful journey, and it's also been very, very challenging, as any mother will say. So for me, some of the challenges have included just the physical fatigue. I'm a doer. I like getting out there and getting things done. So the physical fatigue really got to me. And I had to do just a lot of work on my mindset. So mindset is just a really big word for your thoughts and your beliefs. So I had to do a lot of work around my thoughts and beliefs around motherhood. I knew I wouldn't be perfect. That was never a question for me. But just things like, okay, how do I manage, how do I continue running my business, being there for my clients and doing this work that I love with also being a mom.
Mom.
How do you keep going when all you want to do is nap?
Yeah.
Take a
And
nap in the
break.
afternoon and take
Yeah.
a break.
Relax.
So I had to do all those things. I had to think about all those things. But yeah, I got the help. I asked my friends who are moms to help me out. So, you know, my friends would come visit and, you know, we'd eat together at my place. We'd just have fun. One of my really good friends encouraged me to keep having fun. Otherwise, the whole journey would start getting a bit too tedious.
Yeah, and
So
it affects how
yeah.
you parent and how you mother.
Exactly.
So why would you say it's important for us to be connected to our children? And what does that even mean? When you
Yeah.
say to be connected, what does it actually mean?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So connection for me really is about being present. So I'm here with you right now, Sharon, and I'm present. I'm not thinking about what happened in the morning. I'm
Yeah.
not thinking about where I have to be this evening.
What are you having for dinner?
What am I having
I'm
for
so
dinner?
pissed off at my husband because let me tell you that thing he said, he's gonna get it tonight. We're
Yeah.
not done with the argument. So yeah, you're
Yeah,
here.
I'm present and
Yeah.
I'm here. Yeah. So what happens when you're present is your world becomes very vivid. Yeah. So it's things like, even like, I'm aware of the redness of your dress, the blueness of your shoes. I'm aware of the blue sky. I'm aware of your hair, the little hairpin you have there, your earrings, your nail polish. I'm present. So your world becomes very vivid when you're present. When you're not present, that's when things like, oh, I like Sharon's earrings. And then you're the one going, oh, I didn't even notice them.
Yeah.
You're not present.
Yeah. What color was her
Yeah,
dress? You
or
have no
did
idea.
you, sorry, what was that you said?
Yeah.
And then you're telling the other person, I told you this twice this morning. Did you not hear? So when you find yourself being that person who you're missing things, you're forgetting things, it's usually because you're not present. So for me, connection is about being present. So when I'm with my daughter, before even I go up to her, I'm thinking to myself, let me be present. I know there's that proposal I need to get out. I know I need to respond to that text message. You know, Chris from the show has called me. I've got to call him back. But I'm just being present. And what we find is kids, you know, kids can tell. Kids can tell when you're distracted, you know, so you're trying to play with your son or daughter, but you've got your phone over here. And they really
Yeah.
start to arc up.
And
I think all parents have
yeah.
noticed this.
Yeah.
They start trying to grab the phone, they start whining and complaining. And what I've found is, even with my daughter, and I've had clients say the same thing, if you're present, sometimes even half an hour is enough. And the older your kids get, the less interested they are in you.
Yeah.
They want to hang out with their friends.
Right.
They
They're
want
in
to
their
go off.
room.
Exactly. They've got things they're doing in their room. So really, it becomes a question of quality time instead of quantity time. If you're present for, excuse me, 1 hour, that goes a long way, rather than kind of being there, kind of not being there the
Right,
whole
checking social
day.
media, answering that email,
Exactly.
going back and returning calls.
Exactly.
So what are some of those things that, if we're not careful, would be our distractions? What should we, as parents, be looking out for? You talked about the phone, but what are some of the things, too, that take us away from that moment of being present?
It's a lot of things. It's interesting because I bring a lot of what I've learned as a coach into being a mom. So whether or not you're a parent, it helps to, as I say, do what you're doing when you're doing it. So have breakfast when you're having breakfast. Don't rush out the door with a piece of toast in your hand. So this is actually something that applies whether you have children or not. This idea of do what you're doing when you're doing it. So for example, if you know you've got, say in my case, a proposal to submit by Wednesday, or in 2 days, you can assign a slot of time to work on that proposal. So if I've said to myself, I will work on that proposal on Tuesday from 10 to 11:30, leave it there. It's Tuesday from 10 to 11:30. So I then shouldn't be still thinking about the proposal right now in the
Okay.
afternoon when I'm with my friend, in the evening when I'm with a client, because I've allotted that time slot. Tuesday, 10 to 11:30, I'm going to work on the proposal. You know, Wednesday, 3 to 3:30, I'm
Yeah.
going to make that phone call. Friday, 4 to 6, I'm going to go visit my mom. Saturday, 10 to 12, I'm going
Right,
to go
so
hang
you're
out with
very
my friend.
clear,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's actually something I teach my clients. You think about everything you have to do and assign a time to it, and then you can safely put it out of your mind. But you see, if I know I need to submit a proposal, but I haven't agreed with myself when I'm going to do it, I'll be playing with my daughter, but really thinking about the
So
proposal.
you're not present and you're not connected.
Yeah,
So
so
how
it's
much
also
time?
about being organized.
Yeah.
It's about being organized.
So how much time would you say is enough to allocate to your child? Which even saying it feels
That's-
like, oh
yeah,
my gosh,
no,
we're getting so
that's-
clinical.
No, we
but
can't
is
get
there-
too clinical.
But is there
yeah.
a time? Is there an average time? Like if you spend, you know, studies say if you spend 45 minutes a day with your child,
Yeah.
and it's really you're present and you're in that moment,
Yeah.
then that's. Is there something like that?
Well, I'm not, as you say, very clinical when it comes to the time I spend with my daughter. If I have a morning free, I'll spend it playing with her. If I know I have quite a few other things to get done, I'll allot a certain amount of time to her. Then I'll give her to her nanny, who's been doing such an amazing job. So I believe that with our children, we shouldn't be too clinical, because you're dealing with a human being, an emotional being. But also there's room for spontaneity in life. So I've actually done things like if a meeting has been cancelled or been rescheduled, I've actually gone back home and say gone out for tea with my daughter.
Okay.
Or
So you have like dates.
yeah,
almost, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or if I have an errand to run, so a meeting has been cancelled, I'm around my neighborhood, I'll just go back home, I'll pick her up and I'll run the errands with her. So there's room for spontaneity. And once again, I know we're talking about motherhood, parenthood. It is the month of May, so we are thinking about Mother's Day, but this is information that applies whether or not you have children. It's important to be organized, it's important to be structured, but allow room for flexibility and spontaneity.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the older? When does it start? When is it important to start carving out these times or moments, like really being present? And how does it shift the older that they get? How should parents sort of expect for that to change and be prepared for them to still be connected? Because of course, the same way that your 2-year-old is like, "Mama,"
Exactly.
like pulling on you,
Yeah.
your 16-year-old is probably going to be like, "Ugh, Mama."
Yeah,
You
no,
know? So
it's
how
different.
how do you still maintain that sense
It's
of connection?
really interesting. I mean, they've done research now that shows that even in your belly, your child can sense your emotions. So it's that deep. It's that deep. Even in utero, your child is picking up on your energy, your vibes, the vibes in your environment. I have no idea how that works. Maybe it's God's grace. I don't know.
But I believe it's
So
true, yeah.
yeah, so I certainly encourage women to look after themselves even when they are pregnant. And then of course when the baby is born, again it goes back to asking for help, so that you will be exhausted. That's just the nature of parenthood, especially motherhood, because you're the one who was pregnant. But it's the same even if you've adopted a child. You adopted a very small baby, the baby still has demands. So the asking for help is really going to go a long way to alleviating the exhaustion. And really, it's a lot of what prevents us from being present is our external circumstances. So again, this is why I'm really stressing the ask for help. I am so grateful that we live in a country like Kenya where childcare is affordable. Because in many countries overseas where you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for an au pair, a lot of women, who want to work outside the home do have to take a break for a few years in order to look after their children. So I say to people in a country like this, take advantage of the fact that we are very community based. I ask so many of my friends for help. Even when my husband and I travel, sometimes we travel with my daughter, sometimes we don't. We ask her godparents to take care of her, and they do. So it really does come down to ask for help, however old the child is. So I have a 2-year-old. I've got friends with 3-year-olds, friends with 10-year-olds, friends with teens. Just ask them what they're doing. Ask them what's worked for them. But also remember those professionals I mentioned earlier. Seek counseling, seek help from a psychologist, seek help from a coach. We were not taught how to raise children in school. Most of the time, we are only reading parenting books when we become parents. So you find out you're pregnant and you're quickly now buying all those parenting books.
Yeah.
How quickly can you absorb that information? Because you've still got this other stuff going on in your life. So do the smart thing and get the help wherever it is. Friends, family members, if your siblings have kids and they've walked the journey before you, but also don't be afraid to ask professionals for help. Ask somebody who knows how to deal with teenagers for help. You can find these people online, and if you can't, you can ask your WhatsApp groups. Ask in your groups.
We've got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more on how to be connected with your children, and also have the right conversations with your kids. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about how to be connected and to stay connected with our children. And I've got Cici Ojani Bekor here. Before the break, we were talking about how really it's just about being able to ask for help and not feel ashamed about not being able to have all the answers. And now I want us to dive into like the uncomfortable part when they start to get older and you're like, should I be in their business or not? Should I be having these conversations? What are some of the tools or tricks that we could use to create an environment that allows them to feel that they can come to us? Because when they're younger, they'll come and be like, Mom, John said in school that, and you know they'll share. But the older they get, they start to like, you find that a lot of times kids will sort of retreat. So what are some tools or tips, tricks to try and create an environment that allows for that open conversation and communication?
You know, it's really interesting because as a coach, when you're getting your accreditation, they talk a lot about, obviously you have to get to the bottom of, you know, what is the source of your client's problem. And quite often, not always, but quite often, the birth family situation, you know, the things people were exposed to as children are the things that really stay with us for better or worse. And what I find is being candid and authentic with your kids is what most people would really have liked from their parents. So I've run events and workshops where people have said things like, I had no idea my parents' business went under. We were just living in one type of house one week, and the next week we had to up and move and leave, and and no one said anything. And it was only later, when I was an adult, that I discovered that, you know, the business failed, etc., etc. So what we all want as adults, but also as teenagers, as tweens, whatever you want to call it, is for our parents to be as authentic as they can with us. One of the things I've said to myself is, I want my daughter to know who I am. I don't want to be a kind of mythical creature to her. So I fully intend to tell my daughter about my ups and downs in life. I fully intend to tell my daughter about the challenges and successes I've had in life. We don't set our kids up to fail well, and yet everybody fails. So if you haven't taught your children about your own failures, for example, when they fail, they will be lost. They'll think they're lesser than, they'll think there's a problem here. How can this happen to me? My mom has all her stuff together, but it's not true. So we're finding that in the home, but even in the workplace, what people are craving is candid conversations and authenticity. So imagine growing up in a home where you're having candid conversation, your parents are having candid conversations with you about money. You know, money comes and money goes. Sometimes the bank balance is looking great, we're off to Mombasa, we're off to Dubai, but other times it's not looking great. Talking to our kids about things like, you know, put an effort into finding work you will enjoy, because you're going to be going to this place Monday to Friday, sometimes Saturday. You know, there are people who work weekends, there are people who work public holidays. So in as much as you can, have those candid conversations. We're seeing a real spike, even here in Kenya, of the sorts of events where people get on stage and they share authentically what's going on for them. And when you jump online and you look at the numbers on some of these YouTube channels, hundreds of thousands of people are watching somebody on stage talking about something that is so personal to them that they've overcome. So this is telling us that we're now at a point in our evolution, and this is a global thing, where people are craving authenticity and candid conversations, and our kids are no different. Apart from that, it's also about honoring your child's personality. Years ago, when I was still studying to be a coach, I used to love listening to the work of Dr. Wayne Dyer, who has since passed away. And Wayne Dyer was the first person who I heard ever say that your children are born with a personality. And I remember thinking, wow, is that true? Your children are born with a personality? But it's certainly been true for me. Like I said, my daughter is only two years old. She already has a personality. And my friends and my husband's friends have all noticed her personality. So it's about honoring your child's personality. If you have a child who does not seem interested in sports, it's probably not a good idea to try and force them into being a sporty kind of kid, making them feel small, that they're not sporty. If your children are struggling with something, again, be candid and talk about your struggles. So if, for example, my daughter comes to me and says, I'm really having a hard time with mathematics, I will tell her, so did I. Maybe you should go talk to your dad. He had a great time with math. But people will open up to you. Children, adults, anybody will open up to you if they can sense that even you're being authentic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's also about linking them up with other adults who you trust. So I trust 100% my daughter's godparents, and we talk about it. We talk about how if she ever can't talk to me or her dad about something, she will be able to go to them. Because there are just some conversations you just, it's awkward talking to your mom or dad about something you've done, rather than leaving them with no one to talk to, or doing what some of us did, which is asking our friends who are just as lost.
Do you think it's healthy to maintain that relationship? Do you think it can happen? Do you think, for instance, you can have a situation where your young teenage son or daughter is saying, hey, Mom, I think I want to try X, Y, and do you think it's
yes, I've met people. I have friends and some clients who are very, very close to their parents, and they shared openly with them. I've lived and worked in Australia. I've lived and worked here in Nairobi, and I've met people who have had that experience, and it's really, really wonderful.
So is it different when you have a boy? Is it different when you have a girl? Are there moments in which you need to have a father figure and a mother figure jump in and sort of take on the bigger role and like have that kind of connection? And if so, can you tell us like when those moments are and how to go about it?
Well, again, you ask anybody who has a son and a daughter. So I have nieces, I have a nephew. They will tell you that little boys and little girls are different. We are naturally different, and that's a good thing. I actually believe women and men have complementary differences, and it's such a shame that quite often we don't get along, but that's a whole other story. So little kids, once a child realizes, a girl for example, realizes that, oh, okay, I'm like that parent, so the mom. And little boys eventually realize, oh, I'm like that parent, the dad. We start modeling, all of us have done this, we start modeling our behavior along the lines of the parent who we know we are like. So whether there are two parents in the home or whether you're a single parent, if, for example, you're a dad with a daughter and you're a single parent, it helps to have, again, a woman friend of yours who you know and trust, or maybe your sisters who you know and trust. Hang out with your daughter, because there's certain things that might be awkward for you to talk about with your daughter. There might be certain things your daughter is not comfortable talking to you about. And the reverse is also true. If you are a mom with a son, have those male friends that you trust, or your brothers that you trust and can reach out to just do boy stuff with them. You know what I mean? Again, it always comes down to, who can I ask for help?
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to the more difficult conversations, and especially when kids start to be a little bit more aware of themselves, and they're having all these friends, they're going to school, there are cliques. How often should you, without seeming like you're prying too much into their lives, because this is also a sensitive time. It's when it's when they'll likely make some big mistakes if they're with the wrong crowds.
Yeah.
So how often should parents sort of check in
Yeah.
with their children in order to maintain those open lines of communication and
Yeah.
make sure that they know that it's okay? So whether you're talking about friendships, sex, studies, drugs,
Yeah.
there's like a lot,
There's
social
so
media,
much.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that our teenagers are going through now that we
Yes.
as parents have no idea,
Yeah.
because those things weren't as prevalent for us,
Yes,
you know, growing up. So
yeah,
and
I
some
didn't
not
grow up
even
with Facebook.
social media, they weren't there at all.
Yes.
So how often should one
Yeah.
touch base and so that you're not a nag and someone's like, "Ugh."
So that you're not a nag, but also
Yeah.
you're not too distant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to let it flow organically. I'm sure everybody watching this show has had those moments where they felt their parents were prying too much or whatever the case may be. So let it flow organically. I think it helps, again, it helps to be candid, to show yourself. It helps to be authentic. If you are not being honest about your challenges, your struggles, your mistakes, how do you expect your child to speak freely with you about it? I mean, I'll share with you a personal story. I remember the first time a friend of mine in primary school told me that her mother was having an affair. And it was the house help who told her. And I remember in secondary school when somebody told me her dad was having an affair. And I remember particularly with my friend in high school, that was the beginning of the rift between her and her dad. So her dad was still trying to do the authoritative figure thing, but see, she knew, and so did her siblings. So he's not understanding why the kids are not listening to him anymore. He's not understanding why the kids are being belligerent, but they're being belligerent because the trust has been broken. And it happened again in university when I was in Australia. A friend of mine told me when she found out that one of her parents was having an affair. So this is what I'm arguing against. We need to walk our walk as parents. Your child is not going to respond to you if they can sense you're being inauthentic. But the truth is no one will respond positively to you if they sense you're being inauthentic. I say to the leaders I coach all the time, your direct reports can tell whether you're full of it or whether you're genuine. So whatever we do, we can't escape this thing called, I have to keep it real. I have to keep it real.
Yeah.
So, and kids have a way of finding things out.
And they sense it.
Kids have a way of
Yeah,
finding
you
things
think
out.
you're being very like
think you're being
sneaky
sly.
about it. Nah, they
You
know.
think
They
you're
probably
being
know the
sly.
house better than you, and they know everything. Your phone
Exactly.
code, everything.
Exactly.
All right, we've got to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more with Cece. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about our children and how to be connected and present with our children so that we really are able to show up for them when they need us to. So I'm curious to know, do you think it's ever okay to ask a sibling about their sibling? Like, if you want to know about this child, if you feel like they're not being forthcoming about something, and you're like, something is wrong, can you ask a sibling? Can you snoop? Are there rules around that for parents?
Yeah. Again, it comes down to trust. Unfortunately, I've heard very many stories, just as a coach and as a friend, of people resenting the fact that a parent played the siblings off against one another. And we hear stories like that. So if you focus on being trustworthy, I believe your life as a parent will be much easier than it has to be. So again, it comes back to you. Now, here's the problem with asking the firstborn to tell you some secrets about the secondborn. Not only is gossip dangerous. Gossip is dangerous in any environment, but especially in a home. So number one, you're engaging in gossip. Number two, you're putting the firstborn in a really awkward situation. You're asking them to break trust. So I'm asking my firstborn daughter to tell, I suspect something is happening with my secondborn, but I'm not asking directly, or she's not saying, so now let me ask the firstborn. So this is what we're talking about. You're encouraging gossip, you're encouraging backstabbing, you're encouraging breaking of confidences. So I'm not a fan of that, because it breaks trust. Yeah. I've heard too many stories of people becoming aware that, you know, mom was telling me one thing and mom was telling my sibling something else, or dad was saying this to this sibling, but saying something else to another sibling. How can I be trustworthy as an individual? But again, it's also about having those other adults around your child who they can go to. And it's got to be somebody that you trust. And it's also about encouraging, like for me, for example, I'm not going to go running to my daughter's godparents and saying, let me tell me what she said. You know what I mean? Because again, you're breaking the trust. That's why you have to be strategic about these things and think to yourself, okay, so if I'm not around, who would I want my son to go to as a mentor? If I'm not around, who would I want my daughter to go to as a mentor? And the other thing, of course, is our children are watching us. Our children are watching us. One of the really funny things my daughter does is she'll pick something that looks like a phone and say, hello. So that's a sign to my husband and I that, hey, maybe we're being on our phones a bit too much. See, we think we're okay, but maybe we need to just be mindful about this phone thing, because she's always doing hello, hello, which is what she's seeing.
So there's been this age-old debate, are you a parent or are you a friend? And I think when it comes to like open lines of communication, you see, it's much easier to say to a friend, oh, I like this guy. I think I want to just hang out with him, versus to tell your very strict parent, like, oh, I think I like this guy. So is it important? Should parents try and balance between both, or should you stick to one? And how do you be present and be a friend, but also still be a parent?
It's really tricky. What will help is if we as parents focus on being a guide, because that's really all you are. You are a guide. Any parent who has ever tried to control their children has rapidly seen how that backfires so fast. So it's important to be a guide. One of the challenges with trying too hard to be a friend is you lose authority. If I think you're my friend, Mom, I might not listen to you when you're actually trying to tell me something serious. So what I certainly intend to do with my daughter is, later on in her life, it would be great if we could be friends when she has the maturity for us to be friends, when she's off in her 20s or 30s living her own life and we're just having a tea, two girls. I look forward to that day, but until then, my focus is on being her guide, So I think that's a much healthier approach. So you're not the dictator, but I'm also not your chum. You know what I mean? Because also it takes a while for the human brain to develop. And what a 14-year-old calls a friend is different to what a 30-year-old calls a friend. You know what I mean? Yeah, so we've got to be mindful with that one. Certainly the path I tend to take is I'm her guide.
Yeah.
I'm her guide.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about, I don't know, there could be people watching who are thinking, I don't know if I'm really in touch with my child. I don't remember the last time we had a conversation. I don't know who their friends are and what they're into. So how do you go about rekindling that and reigniting that connection with your child?
Yes, well, definitely you need to be interested in what your kids are doing. One of the things my husband always talks about is how his dad is always interested in the things he's doing. Like there's a genuine curiosity there. So he said to me that even though his dad may not have been interested in certain things like reggae music or whatever, he shows an interest, you know? So again, people will respond positively to you, including your children, if they can see you're genuinely interested in them as people. Yeah, so that's number one. If you've lost that connection with your children, it comes back to, again, being authentic. So what I would do, say for example, 10 years from now or 13, 15 years from now, when my daughter is a teenager, if I've lost a connection with her, what I would do is I would invite her out for a tea and I would be honest and I would say, do you know what? I've dropped the ball. I have dropped the ball. I've been too busy. I've been caught up in this. I've been caught up in that. These are the challenges I've been going through. I have wanted to spend time with you, but it's just been so stressful. Again, that authenticity is what will create an opening that your child can then walk through. It can create a doorway that your child can walk through. But if you've been disinterested in me for the first 14 years of my life and then suddenly it's, hey, tell me
everything.
Tell me everything.
Yeah.
The response is usually, what
who are you?
You're snooping for information. What's going on? Why? So again, it's about building that trust, and you build trust with anyone, especially your kids, by being authentic. Yeah, show me your stuff and I'll show you mine. Yeah.
So you said earlier actually that kids are born with personalities.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you find that perhaps your personality works so beautifully with your firstborn?
Yeah.
And with your secondborn, you're just like, we're just struggling to sort of be on the same page here.
Yes.
How?
Yes.
So how do you balance, as a parent, when you start to feel like, oh gosh, I think I'm more connected. I think I like this one better than I like this one. But you also still have to be connected. You still have to be present. So how should one go about that?
And it's a real challenge. But the answer to the question which so many people have, which is, are those two sisters? They're so different. Are those two brothers? They're so different. How could they have grown up in the same home? It's because kids are born with individual personalities. I am fully aware that I don't like shopping for clothes. I love business. What will happen if my daughter is an absolute diva who loves shopping for clothes? I know exactly who I will point her to. I have friends who love that. And I would encourage her to do that stuff with those friends of mine, those older ladies who love to shop, for example. And again, going back to being interested in what they like, I would tag along. Okay, let me see what this thing of going shopping all day for clothes is like. If I have a child who is not interested in business, they want to be employed, they're happy to be employed, they want to work at a bank. Again, it's about being interested in that and pointing them to an adult that I trust who is in that field, for example. So it's one of those harsh truths that we don't talk about often enough. Our kids are born with personalities, and your child might have a personality that is so different from yours. So what do? You're certainly not going to go, okay, you stand over there, me, I'll hang out with this one over here. It's important to
you be friends with your dad.
Yeah, you be friends with your dad, or you be friends with your mom. Awareness is key. Awareness, awareness, awareness. When I'm running a workshop in an organization, I always say to the participants, if there's one thing you leave here with, let it be awareness. Awareness of yourself. So like how I've said to you, I know I don't like shopping. I've tried. I don't like shopping for clothes. I prefer business. I love talking about business. I'm interested in personal development and philosophy. I'm really interested in music and good food. I'm aware of that. So what that means is I will also be aware if I see my daughter is interested in other things. And I'm aware enough to say, okay, let me be interested in what she's interested in. So awareness is key. So if the people who watch this episode of the show take one thing away, let it be that. Be aware of who you are, be aware of yourself, be aware of your reactions. And two pieces of advice I got from parents when I was pregnant was, you're going to mess up. You are going to mess up. Just clean it up as soon as you can. In other words, apologize to your kid as soon as you can. If you lose your temper or you say something or you do something, clean it up as soon as you realize. So those are the two pieces of advice I got, which I think are great. You're going to mess up, so be kind with yourself, be compassionate. And number two, when you do mess up, clean it up as soon as you can. There's nothing worse than knowing that your mom or dad has done something inappropriate or something wrong, and they're just carrying on as if no one has noticed. I mean, we've noticed. We've noticed.
Or, owning up, accountability.
Yeah, just own it. Yeah. You snapped at me unnecessarily. Just apologize. Let's own it. Let's not pretend everything is fine or that it doesn't matter. It does matter. So you build trust with your children from the jump, from the start. You're building this thing called trust. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cece. Any
You're
last words
welcome.
for parents who are struggling to connect with their children?
You can do it. You can do it. Just be authentic, just be vulnerable, and be kind to yourself. There is no perfect parent out there. Life happens. We can't, we're not all walking around, in a Zen state.
Yeah.
Life happens. And get that help. I have the name of a psychologist on my phone. I have other coaches I reach out to. I get the help when I need the help.
Right, you said your daughter's name is Ajani.
My daughter's name is Ajani.
Oh, and she's turning 2.
She's turning 2
So
on May
cute.
31st.
Adorable.
Such a blessing.
Thank you. And there you go. Hope you learned a couple of things that will help you along this parenting journey. And by the way, all these tips go beyond toddlers and teenagers. You could be struggling to connect with your 40-year-old son or daughter. So hopefully you learned something here that will help you reignite and make that connection. It's never too late. Thanks everybody for watching. Remember, if you want to leave a comment on our social media pages, you can go right ahead. And if you're not following us already, what are you doing? Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's really simple, Living with S. And DM us if you want to sort of see a certain kind of content, or if you want us to interview somebody. You never know, it could also be you. Thanks everybody. We'll be back here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day and keep it locked on NTV.